This week's chapter of Black Clover was fantastic in my opinion. I had a smile spread across my face at the Blue Rose Squad's hijinks, and Yami's absolutely impenetrable level of obliviousness had me shouting at the screen. Despite the fact that many fans are hyped for the adventures abroad and simply couldn't care less about the romantic subplots of this manga, this chapter was fun, and we should appreciate that. Yeah, I know, I want to hurry up and get out and see the world, but let's not take chapters like this for granted and dismiss it because it was more romance-focused. Especially those of you that haven't got the guts to go ask that person you've been staring at out on a date. You know who you are. But for the feeble-minded of you that can't find any redeemable qualities out of this chapter, fear not, because this chapter actually has a lot to offer in regards to world building and development. So, condescension aside, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Hello everyone, I'm Ozzy, and this is my Black Clover 221 chapter analysis. So, despite the comedic nature of this first part of the chapter, it actually has a lot to offer. One of my biggest desires in this series is to see more in regards to the other Magic Knight squads. This chapter, during her announcement, Charlotte discusses the mission statement of the Blue Rose Squad: to champion the power and bravery of women. Now, I have a lot of problems when it comes to the modern feminist movement, but this is something that I really love and appreciate for many reasons. We have to take into consideration that there are only 4 women that have received public recognition throughout the series. Those 4 being Sol, Marialeona, Charlotte, and Nebra. Granted, people like Mimosa and Noelle have been recognized, but my point is that their recognition wasn't public. You have to remember that this is a society where someone like Charlotte was almost kidnapped by a noble because he liked what he saw. I really like the concept that these captains are essentially given the freedom to craft the type of squads that they want, and that at least in regards to the Blue Rose Squad, there is some actual thought put behind it. This isn't to ignore that some selfishness was also thrown in there on Charlotte's behalf. The last thing that I want to say in this regard is that I'm happy we're getting a good look at some of the squad members, with the one in front looking like Damnatio's sister. So in regards to this confession, there are 2 things. Other than it being a funny kind of betrayal, I enjoy that the portrayal of this kind of squad full of Amazons has been shaken up. I can't say for certain, but I do hope that this meeting means that even if just in small doses, we'll be able to see more of the squad. So my second point is of a bit more importance, that being Sol's reaction. I was saying last chapter that I hope that she gets more development, and I believe that this will be the catalyst for such. Consider this. Her perception of this squad's solidarity against men has been completely broken, and as such, it gives her something to think about in regards to her behavior and attitude towards men and towards her squad. She has been charging forward in her simplicity with the assumption that the people around her feel the same way, and this directly correlates to how she uses her magic. And what we've learned throughout this series is that as one grows as a person, they also grow as a magic user. I'm looking forward to how this event changes her already developing perspective. Moving on to the Black Bull's involvement, Yami and Asta show up, or rather, were always there. You have to remember, she left them. The Blue Rose reaction to them popping up is such a perfect panel. You know, despite Yami's years of experience as a shonen protagonist, I'm surprised that his hyper-obliviousness is still there. I would think that he would be able to see through any harm advances with 20/20 vision. Instead, through some twisted joke of fate, Asta is the voice of reason this time around, if only slightly missing the mark. I'm impressed that Tabata is having Asta develop in this way, where although not completely understanding, he is sensitive towards the actions and feelings of those around him. Also, I have to point it out because I found it hilarious, but Asta being too familiar with Charlotte then getting choked out was great. I am loving Tabata's sense of humor possibly more than any of the other current shonen series. Okay, so getting into the more important matters of this chapter, we get to the conversation between Yami and Charlotte regarding her curse. Charlotte mentions a cursed magic user cursed her family. We have seen this silhouette before the last time she mentioned her curse. I assume this figure to be a witch of some sort. Something to remember is that curse magic isn't inherently evil. After all, we have seen plenty of examples of regular people using them, Gordon and Zora being the most prominent. What's important to note is that this curse magic user used forbidden magic. I'm really hoping that this character has a Black Clover. It may sound a bit ambitious and super overwhelming to deal with, but I want these different instances brought up so far to be completely separate demonic influences instead of just some big mastermind that happened to have influenced the Diamond Kingdom, cursed the Rosalie family, cursed the Silva family, and have taken over the Spade Kingdom. Something to note about Charlotte's specific curse is that in a way, she has managed to brute force herself out of experiencing the brunt of her curse. I feel that this will be very relevant later on. In a way, this can also be evidenced in Noelle. Speaking of Noelle, we move on into the third part of this chapter, which only consists of one page, so bear with me because I'm using every panel. A very important detail, which, to be frank, every single detail in this page is very important, is that Charlotte notes that the curse affecting Noelle is worse than hers. This is substantial when we consider how much we've seen the effects of Charlotte's curse. Charlotte's wording is super important though. I'm sure that everyone is assuming that this curse is making Noelle not be able to properly use her magic, but I don't believe that this is the case. Charlotte mentions that the effects of the curse are affecting Noelle, not that Noelle has been directly cursed. I personally believe that Noelle's inability to control her magic is due to the trauma she suffered as a child, and the lack of confidence that accompanies that. Now, I don't know the exact details, but if we're being technical, a curse that kills her mother is still a curse whose effects have affected her. I'm not entirely certain on this, but it could be that Aesir made a deal with a demon to ensure that her baby survives and gains all of her magic power. But in a kind of monkey's paw situation, the demon made her power overwhelming to control, or maybe just knew that a kid with that much power would be a prime target for possession, considering the despair of losing her mother, or maybe that she would just end up killing herself with so much power. A very puzzling aspect about the end of this chapter is the nature of Dorothy's character. I mean, look at her, she's not sleeping. But more than that, she already knew that Noelle would be coming to her. This isn't just a Silva family thing. Not only Dorothy, but even Charlotte is aware of this curse. I would assume that every captain is at least aware. So why would Noelle refer Noelle to someone else? Someone outside the family? It's not like they're not on talking terms or something. I believe, considering the newfound caring nature of his character, that this is something Noelle just can't bring himself to talk about, which in my opinion feeds to the notion that it is something that casts shame upon the Silva family name. But that's enough rambling from me for this time. It seems that my predictions were correct and that this transitional arc is going to focus on the many different curses plaguing the Clover Kingdom, giving us plenty of plot threads to look out for as we travel abroad. I am super excited to learn about the Silva family curse. I think it's been a long time coming, and hopefully we'll get a little more insight on the different Silva family members. I hope you guys enjoyed the chapter. I sure enjoyed talking about it. Dorothy and Silva family hype for next time. Until the next video, Seal.